Welcome, I'm Nick Shaver here with TorchPrep, tackling question number 40 on test number 3. Now I'm going to give you a pause the video, reread question number 40 before we tackle it. Okay, now that you've reread this, now I would not recommend this to be a survey question unless you just got the unit circle memorized in your head, you're rocking it, you're like, boom, I figured it out. This would be a good opportunity to skip and then come back to it. And if you're really struggling with trigonometry, this isn't the easiest trigonometry question either. So it does take some knowledge about the unit circle. That's really what they're testing you here. And kind of obviously knowing what tangent is and all this stuff. So let's break it down. Let's break it down into some detailed steps here so we can really understand what this question, let's unpack it. So it's asking us, when is tangent equal to -1? So before we think about it as when is it -1, maybe let's just kind of review when would tangent be +1. So SOHCAHTOA, so we know tangent is opposite over adjacent. And so if the opposite over adjacent is equal to 1, what do we know about opposite and adjacent? We know that the only numbers to get to O over A1, we know O has to be equal to A. So if O is equal to A, this gives us a special kind of triangle, doesn't it? What do we know? What kind of triangle do you know where both of these sides are equal? We know if these sides are equal, the angles are equal, and the angles are equal, we know that that has to be 45 and 45. So we know for tan of theta, tan of the degrees to be 1, it has to be equal sides. 45-degree angle. All right, but that's not what the question is asking. It's asking us, when is it -1? So now this is when I would jump into the unit circle to tackle this. So there's a few situations where we have tan of 45, okay? We have this, it's 45, we could have this. These are our 4 triangles that we can draw to give us opposite over adjacent are equal. All right, so jumping into this unit circle here, this is how I would tackle this problem. I would know that you got to remember, because it's not asking us about degrees. If it was telling us degrees, we're like, oh, great, we have it. We know what the answer choice is. It would be at 45 degrees plus 100. So these are the different degrees here at 130, 135. Plus 90s and here, there, but we're not worried about degrees, right? We're not worried about degrees because they're not asking us about degrees. So we've got to rethink about the unit circle, or think about it in terms of pi, because that's what the answers choices are giving us. So if you remember, a full rotation is 2 pi, and so half of rotation we know is pi. Okay, so let's just fill out a couple more things over here. So we just kind of have so if this is pi, this is 2 pi, half of that, we know 90 degrees has to be pi over 2, and then now half of that we have pi over 4. Okay, so now we filled in a little bit of the unit circle, kind of using what we know about trigonometry and pi, and a few key things, like you have to know the unit circle is 2 pi, you have to know, half of it's pi. These are just things you have to know. You have to memorize, you have to relook at the unit circle to get this question right, in my opinion. Okay, so let's fill out another key point here. If this is pi over 4, this is my 45-degree angle. We know that on the unit circle, there's another 45-degree angle over here. So if we're adding on a 90-degree angle, half of pi, so another 90 degrees, there's 2 ways to do this. I mean, you could have it memorized in your head, or you could do pi plus pi over 2, 90 degrees, plus pi over 4. And now we're getting this, we got to do 2 over 4 like terms. So now we have 3 pi over 4. So now that gets us 3 pi over 4 is another 45-degree tangent on the unit circle. All right, and so we can do that again over here. So we can label this 3 pi plus 2 pi over 4 plus another 90 degrees here. You see we're adding a 90 degree to get to this rotation turn, okay? And then so now we're at 5 pi over 4. And now you kind of see a pattern, 1 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4. You can add it, or you can just know that the pattern will give us 7 pi over 4. Okay, well, you're like, wait a second, I see all these, you're not, okay, it makes sense. I see 3 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, 7 pi, but still I don't know what the answer is. All right, so I'm telling you, you have to know a lot in this question. You really have to review your unit circle. That's what they're testing you on. So, okay, so now let's erase kind of how I drew the unit circle. And what I was trying to do is kind of explain how to create the unit circle if you don't have it memorized. If you have it memorized, boom, just knock it up, throw it on there. You got it. They're asking you this in your Algebra 2 classes. But what I do, I was showing you, even if you don't have it memorized, you can kind of think about it and create the unit circle in the way that I did. Okay, but now that still doesn't give us our answer. So when is tan of theta -1? So now we're thinking about these xy coordinate points here. So if an xy coordinate point, this is positive to get to this xy coordinate point, a positive over a positive will give us +1. Opposite over adjacent, +1, perfect. Now, we're on the negative x over here, so this is a negative. Then we're going positive on the y. So if we go opposite over adjacent, positive over negative, what's a positive over negative? Happens to be a negative. So that's our -1 for that degree. All right, let's keep rotating out. And what about this one? This is a negative x we saw and a negative y. What's a negative over negative? We know that is positive. So now we know it's not pi over 4. We know it's not 5 pi over 4. Let's check this last one out and see if we get it. This is positive, and now this y is negative, and our opposite, negative over a positive, is our -1. So now that's how we see that 3 pi over 4 and 7 pi over 4 are our 2 degrees and radians that give us a -1. So that's a lot of work. That is a lot of unpacking that I did. I tried to make it clear so you could see I'm not just memorizing the unit circle and throwing it up on there. I wanted to have you get like how you can create it by using some trigonometry facts there. All right, good work.